Hi, and welcome to episode number 4 of this history walking tour from Aquatic Park to Nob Hill. I'm here at the top of Lombard Street at the corner of Lombard and Hyde, and we are going to continue up Hyde Street towards the top of Russian Hill today, stopping on Green Street. Once again, we're going to start at the corner of Hyde and Lombard and walk up Hyde Street along George Sterling Park. We're going to make a left turn on Union Street and go over to Leavenworth Street, and then down Leavenworth Street to Green Street. We're going to detour for a second about a quarter block down Filbert Street. This photo was taken here sometime in the mid-1920s. You can see that the road wasn't paved and wasn't well traveled because of all of the weeds growing on it. You can also see the two buildings across the street that are still there today. Now we're going to continue down Hyde Street to the corner of Union. Here at the corner of Hyde and Union is the first Svensson's ice cream shop, which opened in 1948. Today this doesn't really mean a lot, but in the 70s and 80s there were 400 Svensson's ice cream parlors across the country. Now I think there's 3 left. Now we're walking up Union Street to Leavenworth. Here you can see the devastation from the fire and earthquake of April 16th and 17th, 1906. Now we're going to continue down Leavenworth Street to Green Street. In a second, we're going to turn down Green Street. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on Green Street in the one block between Leavenworth and Jones. There's quite a few buildings to look at. I'm going to start at this building we're coming up to at 1088 Green Street. It's on the left side of the street. This side of the street was destroyed during the fire and earthquake of 1906. Firemen lived upstairs and horses were stabled downstairs, and there's still a fire pole to get from the top to the bottom floor. While this building was a firehouse, it also operated as a community center because Russian Hill was so isolated. The firehouse closed in 1952, and it's now owned by the Society of St. Andrews, which is a club to promote Scottish arts. They have a library and meetings here. Now we're going to make our way across the street and look at a couple of houses here. This side of the street survived the 1906 earthquake and fire, so these buildings will be much older. This is an octagon house built in 1857. It has 8 sides. This was a home building fad in the 1850s and 60s. Architects that designed these houses believed that they were healthier because they let in more air and light. There used to be over a dozen of these houses in San Francisco. Now there's only 2 left. There was another one of these houses at the end of this block, but it's no longer there. In the 1880s, the entrance to this house was moved from the front where the balcony is on the 2nd floor to the left side where it is now. Now we're going to move to the house next door. It was a plain wooden building with a porch built in 1866. This house was completely remodeled in 1916 by architect Julia Morgan. Julia Morgan was an architect and engineer and was the first woman architect licensed in California. She designed more than 700 homes as well as large public buildings throughout the state. Many of these designs were for institutions serving women and girls, including a number of YWCAs and buildings for Mills College in Oakland. She is best known for her work on Hearst Castle in San Simeon, California. Julia Morgan completely changed this home. She got rid of the front porch, moved the entrance from the front to the side, removed the top floor, covered the building with stucco, and added decorative features, some of which you can see around the arched windows where the entrance used to be. Now we're going to move on to the house next door, which was built in 1867. Like almost all buildings in San Francisco built in the 1860s and 70s, it was originally designed in the Italianate style. In 1910, the owner wanted to make the building look more like the craftsman homes that were being built at the time. To do this, they removed all of the Italianate decorations, they added the cupola on top of the building, and they covered the entire building with wood shingles. Now we're going to move on to the house next door once again. This house was originally a two-story building built in 1885, farther down the hill on Van Ness Avenue. It was moved here in 1906, and a third floor was added on the bottom of the building, requiring the unusual staircase to the second floor. You can see where the original front door was on the second floor. Now let's move once again to the house next door. This house was built in 1868 on Taylor Street near Jackson Street on Nob Hill. A new owner bought the house and lot in 1883 and wanted to build a mansion on it, so moved this house here. The new mansion on Nob Hill did not survive the fire and earthquake of 1906, but the fire was stopped before it got to this side of Green Street, so this house survived. Now we're going to go back across the street to look at one last building on this block. This building was built in 1913 by a designer named Louis Hobart, who also designed Grace Cathedral on top of Nob Hill, which we will see in a later episode of this walking tour. This was originally apartments, but now has one condo on each floor. With no other buildings in the way, these condos have a great view of the bay. Now we're going to walk to the end of the block, which is the corner of Green and Jones Street. This photo of Green Street in 1865 shows the block that we just walked down. On the left side of the photo, halfway down the block, you can see the roof of the Octagon House. This is another photograph of this same block of Green Street in 1887 showing a snowstorm. You can see on the right side the other Octagon House that was at the corner of Green and Jones that is no longer there. Now we're going to cross the street and walk down one short block of Green Street where it dead ends because of the steep grade down Russian Hill. Here you can see how Green Street is still half taken up by part of Russian Hill. Here's this spot in 1916. You can see how Green Street just ends at Russian Hill. This is the same block of Green Street in 1919, just 3 years later. You can see how much of Russian Hill they've excavated back to allow a one-lane section of Green Street. Today the street is essentially just as wide as it was in 1919. Now we're going to walk to our last stop on Green Street and the last two buildings on Green Street. The building on the right at 947 Green Street was built first in 1924. It blocked the view of the bay of several houses on Vallejo Street, one block higher up on Russian Hill. One of those homeowners was so upset that he bought the lot of 945 Green Street, the building on the left, and built a building there that was 2 to 3 stories higher and shaped like an L, so it would completely block the view of the building at 947. This building was completed in 1928. Here's a view of these two buildings from the top of Russian Hill on Vallejo Street. I am about half a block down the street from the lots of the houses whose views were blocked. You can really see from this angle how the design of 945 Green Street really blocks the views of 947 Green Street. We have one last stop to make on this walking tour. We're going to walk down the stairs to Taylor Street and Green Street, where we can get a really good view of why Green Street does not connect between Taylor and Jones. This is a photograph from this spot in 1916. The stairs on the right are the ones I just walked down, and you can really see how you could not connect Green between Jones and Taylor. This is a photo from that same spot today. Now I'm going to quickly make my way back up the stairs I came down a minute ago, and I'm going to stop back again in front of 945 Green Street. I'm going to end this fourth episode of this San Francisco walking tour here on Green Street, where the pavement ends before it reaches Taylor Street. On the next episode, episode number 5, I'm going to make my way back up to Jones Street, over a block to Vallejo Street, and then up Vallejo Street to the top of Russian Hill. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.